I don't know why it does that sometimes. All right, everyone. It is 2 o'clock. We shall get started. So, first and foremost, my name is Garrett Dudley. I'm a safety manager here at ECC. Been around for a couple of years. First time presenter, long time listener. So, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to stop me or raise your hand in the chat, whatever, and we'll take it like that. So today's safety topic or training is going to be on the EM385, the 2014 versus the 2024. I know a lot of us have a lot of experience with the 2014 version, and so we're going to go over just a brief overview of the 2024 and kind of highlight the differences and the new topics that are outlined in the new one. All right, so, oh, hold on. Technical difficulties. All right, so by the end of the training, we should all be able to identify any major differences between the 2014 and the 2024 EM385, recognize new safety and occupational health topics, understand how those changes impact our APPs and the AHAs, and apply the updated requirements to our field operations. So everyone in this call, with the exception of Kim, is a field level SSHO. So this is directly involving us, right, and what we need to start implementing. So these new objectives reflect a shift from the rule-based compliance of the old 2014 system to a now system-based approach that prioritizes risk management and continuous improvement. So you'll see that there's new chapters in the 2024 version, like rope access and drone operations. And it's so that we as safety professionals can plan for specialized hazards, right? So if we don't have a good understanding of the occupational health topics, right, we can't do a comprehensive safety program. So they're focusing now a lot on sanitation, heat stress, and other major risks to help us plan. All right, so it allows us to have actionable steps to include in our AHAs, right? So like the emergency response measures and specialty equipment requirements, and it allows us to maintain compliance and enhance operational safety. So big picture comparison, right? The 2014 manual was rule-based, like I talked about earlier, relying heavily on appendices and a really inconsistent chapter layout. It focused largely on physical safety hazards with limited attention to occupational health, all stuff that you guys should already be aware of. But in contrast, the 2024 manual adopted a system-based safety management approach, which included standardized chapter structures. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to get on there or in the new one and kind of see how they're all broken out, but they're all standardized. That includes rules and responsibilities, training, inspections, hazard controls, and the required plans for each section. The appendixes have all been eliminated, and all the content is integrated into the chapters for clarity. The structural overhaul facilitates easier enforcement and reduces ambiguity, right? Furthermore, the new edition balances safety and health considerations, ensuring that occupational health hazards receive equal attention, okay? All right, so why the EM385 was updated? Construction methods and technology have evolved. Obviously, we all use ChatGPT, so obviously technology is evolving. Modern projects routinely involve specialty operations. We had helicopters, for instance, in LA. The utilization of drones. We're utilizing drones at Moody right now to inspect the roofs, which were uncommon and loosely addressed in the 2014 EM385, right? So the earlier manual did not capture the risks associated with those new activities, which led to inconsistent plans and enforcement, right? I think we can all agree that you've been on a USACE project where they're super strict about something, and then you go to a NAVFAC or an AFCAP project, and it's like a cakewalk because they're not enforcing certain things. So this was to help overhaul the EM385 to where us and the client are both on the same page in terms of the risks and planning, qualifications, documentation. All right, another major update was the increased recognition in occupational health hazards that directly impact safety performance. The old EM385 focused heavily on physical hazards like falls and struck-bys, while health-related risks received less consistent emphasis. Data demonstrated that conditions such as heat stress, dehydration, poor sanitation, and illness contribute to decreased alertness, poor decision-making, and a higher incident rate, right? So obviously, the few of us that were in Maui can attest that heat stress was a big deal out there, as well as dehydration. I don't think any of us are unaware of the hazards associated with it. I think we at ECC do a really, really good job of catching those and not allowing them to be issues, but this is putting everybody on the same page. So as a result, the 2024 manual elevates the occupational health to the same level of enforceability as the traditional safety hazards like falls. All right. And it addresses the long-standing challenge with inconsistent enforcement across the USACE projects. The 2024 edition standardized chapter structure, like we talked about, and it allows for a reduction in the interpretation from the client. It improves consistency and it makes expectations clearer for us and them. Right. So the central theme of the update was a shift towards risk-based safety management as opposed to the rule-based compliance. Right. We're no longer going to be measured on our success isn't going to be measured on the adherence to the requirements and reaction after the incident. It's going to be more leading indicator rather than lagging, if that makes sense to everybody. All right. So what'd they do? The 2024 edition introduced the new chapters and new safety management practices compared to the 2014. All right. It serves obviously as a cornerstone for us, safety and occupational health. And it sets the standard on military and civil work projects. The 2024 edition, again, covers new chapters, the requirements, and a systemic approach to safety management, and will allow us to update the APP and AHAs so that we're in compliance. Okay. So structural changes. It went from 34 chapters to 37 and then standardized the format like we talked about, right? Each chapter now includes clear subsections for roles and responsibilities, training, inspections, hazards, and the plans. All right. I know, like, for instance, Nick worked on the Washington State project plans, and we went through the 2024 EM385 and were kind of blown away by the increase in required plans for a lot of that work. And we're going to continue to see that as we move into 2026, 2027, and beyond, because less of our projects are going to be grandfathered in from the 2014 version. Like we talked about, all the appendices have been eliminated, all been integrated, and then the changes simplify compliance and allow us to be on the same page and be proactive. So some of the new topics, emerging risks, technology, rope access, drones. There's a bunch. There's 4 more, right? Emergency operations are now considered their own chapter, right? So you're not going to have to go through each individual chapter and try to figure out what the emergency operation considerations are. It's all right there for us. They've increased risk for some of them. So for rope access, for example, is now considered high risk and specialty operation, which requires dedicated plans and rescue procedures. Before, it was kind of left up to the discretion of the client and the safety. Drone operations were previously unregulated and now are fully integrated into the construction safety protocols. And then emergency operations are now its own chapter and are very concise. It's crazy. Motor vehicle safety is now in there. Defensive driving, stuff we've already been implementing here at ECC, but now it's putting it into action for everybody else. So it's hopefully bringing the rest of them up with us. So rope access requirements. So it's got its own chapter. You have to have qualified technicians and equipment. Qualified and trained technicians must use inspected and documented equipment. So it's not going to be, go down to the Home Depot and grab, the fall protection in a bucket situation. It's going to be mandated. Rescue plans have to be done prior to. And then they've got to have their own AHAs and oversight by us. All right. Hopefully this enhances safety for us and reduces the likelihood of incidents just based on do all the work on the front end so you have an easier job on the back end, basically. All right. Uncrewed aircraft or drones. Drone operations are considered construction activities now. There's FAA pilot qualifications. You have to have approved flight operations, and then you got to coordinate with the site, the FAA, and base, the client. They're going to start using drones more often than not, in my opinion, right? So progress photos, inspections, we're using it for QA documentation on my job site now. We can start utilizing drones for marketing and owner updates, client meetings, stuff like that. But if it's flying over the site in any way, shape, or form as an unmanned drone, it has to be planned for. We can't just go, oh, let's throw a drone out there. All right, so some hazards associated with the drones. Personnel struck, equipment damage, obviously restricted airspace violations. We work a lot in the federal world where, no-fly zones. Distractions to site operations. You don't want a drone up there while you're slinging steel, setting up a new hangar, and the guy walking the steel gets distracted. And then, so it's going to be addressed in the planning documents, the AHAs and the JSAs moving forward. You have to do pre-flight checklists, post-flight checklists, communication protocols. There's a ton of different exclusion zones, spotters, a ton of different requirements now for drones. So if you haven't already, get in the EM385 and see if you're planning on using a drone. Get ahead of it. Emergency operations. So the 2024 EM385 creates a single chapter like we've talked about before. It's a big change from the 2014 where the emergency requirements were scattered and typically were reduced to call 911. So that's no longer going to be a allowable approach. All right. In the 2024, it's going to be centralized, obviously, into its own chapter with emergency planning that has clear and concise roles, procedures, coordination, and documentation. And that ties emergency response directly into the AHAs. So most of the new AHAs are going to have this outlined in them moving forward. Okay, so the roles, right? It's going to be who's leading, who's communicating, who's providing the medical care, and who manages the muster and accountability. So this isn't something that we as SSHOs can do single-handedly. We need to be pulling in our teams and delegating some of these roles because we can't be everywhere at once. The person who's leading the emergency operation cannot be the one getting a muster, right? It's just we don't have enough time or bandwidth to do that. The medical response has to be pre-planned. I know a lot of us in our APPs, we have coordinate with, local EMS for a lot of our plans. And in my experience, that doesn't get done well. So they're making it to where we're going to have to, and it's going to have to be documented. Obviously, in our APPs, we've already got the maps to the closest clinics and hospitals and the transportation routes. So that shouldn't be any big change for us. Another one is the severe weather. So what triggers it? When do we have shelter and stand down procedures? And then how do we do the restarts for the jobs? So a lot of us that were on Camp Lejeune during hurricane season, we are pretty familiar with this as well. But with the change of the environment and the increase in severe weather, this is something that we should all be looking at, whether it be tornadoes, hurricanes, flash floods like what's happening in Maui, or fires, right? And then the rescue plans. So they've got to be integrated. They have to have a job-specific rescue plan and drills for specific operations. So rope access and confined space. Confined space we're pretty aware of, right? If you've worked in a confined space area, you know that you have, if it's permitted, you've got to coordinate that with local EMS. All right. So not a big change, but it's coming. So the goal for the 2024 versus the 2014 is to move away from being reactive and start being proactive when it comes to a lot of these things. Defensive driving. So it's significantly expanded under the 2024 EM385. Vehicle incidents continue to be a leading cause of injuries and fatalities, and property damage, more likely than not property damage, on projects that we work on and off the construction site. So the 2024 manual shifts the focus from equipment condition only, right? So no longer is it going to be, well, they did a equipment inspection checklist, and now it's going to be driver behavior, risk recognition, planning, site controls, and accountability. The USACE is now treating vehicles as a mobile hazard and expects projects to manage them using the same approach we would to cranes, lift, or other heavy equipment. Okay, so if you have, like for instance, Ted, you've got those gators out on Niagara. Obviously, that's an older project, but as we transition to new 2024 projects, they're going to have to be managed the same way we would with heavy equipment. Sanitation and occupational health. So another big change to the EM385. They're no longer treating it as an afterthought or as a basic welfare issue. It's now fully enforceable, right? It's elevated to the same as a physical safety hazard like fall protection. It's not going to be a comfort issue or a checklist or something we just knock off on the SSHO dailies, right? In the 2024, it places sanitation directly within the occupational health risk management. They're worried that it can lead to heat illness, dehydration, gastrointestinal issues, pest, reduced productivity, and increased incident risks. So now, moving forward, we need to be treating it like everything else, and it's got to be planned, addressed in the APP, outlined in the AHAs, actively inspected and documented. So that may be that, once a day you go and check the porta-johns and make sure the hand wash stations are good to go. Housekeeping, I know it's in our SSHO reports, but we need to be more diligent towards it on a project that has 2024's EM385 being enforced, because we can get dinged for it more so than we would in the 2014 version. So they also increased and expanded the roles and training expectations in the new 2024 EM385. So the responsibilities of SSHOs and other supervisors has greatly increased. We have greater authority to stop work and are expected to play a more active role in planning and documentation. Supervisors are now accountable for implementing hazard controls and ensuring that training aligns with site-specific risks. Okay. Training requirements have also evolved, emphasizing competency over attendance. So no longer is it going to be, hey, I attended, so give me my cert. It's going to be more so on, can you do the thing you were just trained on? Okay. So programs have to be hazard specific, task specific, and documented thoroughly. I know on my project we use JOT forms to manage all of our lift certifications, fall protection certifications, competent persons certifications. And so that's something that if you're going to a job site that is using the 2024, I would highly suggest. It's been a great asset to me. And if you need help getting that implemented on your job in the future, feel free to let me know, and I can help you walk through that. And it's all about building a safety culture, right? They're trying to go more human first rather than job first on this EM385, and they want us to be working as a team for accountability purposes and to help obviously reduce incident rates. So the impacts on the AHAs, we talked about it, the APPs and AHAs. So APPs now include new hazard categories, rope access, drone use, emergency operations planning. Again, I think we're doing a really good job of this already. We just need to tighten it up for 2024's EM385. The big one that's going to get us all caught in the field are the AHA requirements. So the AHAs now have to incorporate health hazards, emergency response steps, and control measures for the entirety of that activity. Okay. Obviously, the APPs and the AHAs, I'm sure you've seen Kim's emails in the last month or so that we're updating APPs, and we need to be going through the AHAs to make sure they're maintaining compliance and doing their job at reducing safety incidents. Sorry, my computer's going slow. So some key takeaways. The EM385 2024 introduces new chapters, right? It expands the focus on occupational health. It signals a shift towards proactive system-based safety management rather than just checklisting. Documentation and planning are becoming more and more critical within the APPs and the AHAs, right? They're now acting like they should have been from the beginning as a central tool for compliance and risk mitigation. Leadership and supervisors are now carrying an increased responsibility, which should emphasize the need for engagement and accountability on all levels, not just as SSHOs, right, but the entire team. And then understanding and implementing these changes are essential for maintaining compliance, protecting the workers, and ensuring project success. We should prioritize training, update the safety plans, and foster a culture of continuous improvement to align with these new requirements of the EM385. No, I didn't fill out this slide, but again, my name is Garrett Dudley. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
So I have some comments to make. Thanks, Garrett. That was really good. That was a great overview. Um, Something that affects all the SSHOs as well are the new forms that are required for things such as designating a competent person, which is now Form 6282.
Yep.
And that form is required not only for SSHOs to designate SSHOs, but it's also required for anyone else that will be considered a competent person. So that applies to like fall protection. It could be excavation competent person. It could
Confined
be
space.
confined space, qualified equipment operators, um, qualified crane operators, um, anything that has a designation for a competent person. So the form's fairly easy to fill out. The thing that you need to remember about it is, and I can put a copy in the chat if y'all need it. I
Yeah.
think I think a few of you have already like used those anyway, but um, the thing to remember is that when you list the qualifications for the person that deems them competent, you need to make sure that you're attaching those credentials as well where they're required. Another form that's now required are crane forms. There's a series of different crane forms for critical lift, routine lift, and then what used to be the P62 or whatever it is. That's now a new form as well that needs to be completed. So just keep these things in mind as you're going through some of the new requirements if the manual applies to your project. I know there are a couple of projects that are active now where it does require. Oh, there you go. Thanks.
No worries.
Yeah, and I see you
Yeah,
have the
so
APP
level
form
3.
too. Yeah. Go ahead, Gareth. You know.
Yeah, so they've implemented new levels to the SSHOs. So prior to 2014, whatever the version was before that, 1998 or something, they had levels of SSHOs. Now they're coming back to it. So level 1 is going to be the cream of the crop, right? Level 2 is going to be like an alternate type situation. And then level 3 is going to be that, like Kim was talking about, the qualified or confident person. So for instance, let me do old Jeff Brugeau. I think I have his here. Jeff, you okay with me putting your stuff out there? Oh, never mind. It's
Yeah, I
not
don't
the
care.
full one. But down here, so I always do them like this. I always have Nick or Kim sign them. And then directly attached to this, I would have Jeff's resume, his certifications, whether that be HAZWOP, EM385 40 hour, OSHA 30, CPR, first aid, AED. They all get directly put underneath this. And then this gets sent to the client to so that you can get your designation. There's a ton of different forms. I would suggest that everyone get into the EM385. If you don't have the new version, I can, matter of fact, I'll put it in the chat right now. So that way you guys can go through it. The numbering system has changed significantly. And so it may take you a minute to kind of get familiar with it. So it used to be, 16 tack this and that. Now it's more 2 tack whatever, 5, point B, point whatever, right? So the numbering system's changed a lot. And then um, so for instance, if we go into, like Kim was talking about, the cranes, so that used to be called a 16 tack 1 and 2, right? Now it brings you up to um, the, what is it now, Kim? The ENG form,
There's a
it'll tell us.
right. The load handling, which is the one that replaced the 16-2, which is now 6213. And then
Went too
there
far.
is the certificate of compliance,
Yep.
which is now the form 6209.
So you'll see they all have the same standardized layout, right? So it's going to tell you what it is, Chapter 16, load handling equipment, and that's Section 1. Section Section 1 is going to be references on all of these now. Section 2 is going to be definitions. Section 3 is going to be roles and responsibilities or training and qualifications. The next section is roles and responsibilities. I got them backwards. And then it goes into inspections. And then it goes into general requirement. Oh, I'm sorry, AHA requirements. So
Yeah,
every
six.
section's, go ahead.
I was gonna say six is the AHAs for each section.
Yep. And
But
then,
a lot of those are they just refer back to section 2, chapters 2 and 3.
yeah, and as you become more familiar with it, right, it'll make it easier to where you're not having to scrub through it as often, and you'll know that, hey, it says go back to this section. Um, the the plans now were up there, and I think I missed it. It'll tell you where to go to get those plans. If you're having to pull the plans for a certain thing, for instance, a crane plan, USACE's website is kind of not great. So they,
You talking about forms?
yeah, so the forms, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's
some of them, right, you open them and it'll tell you your Adobe Acrobat can't open it. And so what I've come to learn is, if it ever wants to load, so we'll go to 6283. Go ahead, Kim.
No, sorry, I was yelling at my dog. I forgot I was
Oh,
on.
they don't. You're not supposed to use a browser for the
what
forms.
are you supposed to use?
Um,
Because
how
this
did
is
I do that?
Chrome.
I just did it the other day.
So,
I think you have to download it to your
Like,
desktop and then
yeah,
open
yeah,
that's
it.
yeah,
exactly what you have
exactly.
to
Yeah,
do.
you don't
Yeah.
go like through Chrome to get it.
No.
You have to download them. Nick and I just went through it on the APP plan that pulled straight from my desktop. I've been going through these, all the common ones that I typically use, downloading them and putting them into a forms section, so that way I always have them. But some of them don't pull up. They say it can't be loaded. Download them onto your desktop and then open them through Adobe, and it'll
Yeah.
open right up. And some of these forms are once they're signed, just like every other form we have, it becomes like a locked document. Um, and so print to PDF becomes your best friend on these new forms. But this new publication forms website is really hit or miss depending on who's uploading it and how they did it. A lot of them become locked. In order to edit them, you have to have some special signature. credential. What else? What other new stuff did they implement?
Just the form for the APP is new as well, the 6293.
Yeah, 6293.
Yeah, and if anyone has to write one of these, let me know because I will send you. I've got one that I use that's got all the basic information already in it, so that all you need to change are the people that are involved, who who's going to do certain things. Like if you've got to designate different inspections, like you might need to update that if someone has to do a different inspection. And then go through the checklist and talk about, what plans are required. Because if you're not going to dig, you don't need an excavation plan. So you would check that as 3, not applicable type thing. You may have a different severe weather plan. You'll have different scope of work, different definable features of work, that type of stuff. So you would check the boxes for what applies to your sites, but the general stuff about, how we do things, I've already got in there for you. So
Yeah,
it's all of these separate plans
so
that you'll
page
have to,
6
yeah,
on this is what you're talking about.
correct.
And then yeah, you choose option 3 if you don't need a fatigue management plan, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
and then you got to put a justification in here as well.
Right. So, and again, that will vary by client. So if you don't think you're going to need something, um, what I typically do is just put a note in there that, like for lead and asbestos, especially, if we encounter lead or asbestos, I usually check a 3, but then I add a note that if we encounter it, then we'll update the plan. In a situation where you've got a plan that's being submitted by a subcontractor, that's when I would use a 2 and say, plan to be submitted under separate cover or something to that
Right.
effect so that they know it's coming. It's just not part of this plan because it's not ready yet.
Yeah, and we're still putting most of these in the APP, or not. That's a dumb way to say it. Um, you don't have to put them in as individual plans as the appendix, right? They can all go into the base APP. So with this, right?
Yeah, well, you put all of the plans, all go like leave it where you have it right now on the required
Mm-hmm.
appendices.
Mm-hmm.
So all of your maps, subcontractors, personnel qualifications, all of that stuff has to go into these appendices now. So I've got the appendix 5 with all the site specific plans and procedures already formatted so that, if it's a common one, it's already in there. If it's not so common, it may not be in there. Like a blasting plan, for example, if you're going to do any kind of paint removal or something where you have to use a blasting machine, then that's not in there. I mean, I have them from maybe other people, so I may have something if you need it. But all of those plans, it's in a formatted document so that it's really easy. Well, I shouldn't say easy, but once you get all the plans done, you can insert it into this, into the appendices that go into this. So it's this plan, the intent was supposed to be to shorten everything to make it easier for the users to find the information that they need. Um, Personally, I don't see much difference. It's still just as long, it seems like. It's a little more of a pain in the butt to put together with all the check boxes and everything and how it locks the document out. So like Garrett said earlier, you have to print a PDF so that it flattens it so that you can add documents to it once you have signatures. So it's a little trickier to do. It's not harder, but it's just the formatting is just it takes a little getting used to. So if you have to do one, let me know. And I've got most of the stuff somewhere that I can send to you so it's easier for you. But again, I know how to do them, so if you need one, let me know.
And it does seem like they're being more proactive, right? So it used to be we could get away with not having equipment listed, right? It'll say, in some of the APPs, we'll let you know when we get it type situation. And now
Right.
they're becoming more particular on, well, look, you know what your scope is, so tell me what your anticipated equipment is. and and list them out here, so that way they have a really good understanding. It's not no longer, can you pull the wool over their eyes type situation to where, oh, well, I didn't know it was coming today. And it's like, no, you had it listed in your equipment list to be used in the APP. So you knew it was coming. So it's one of those things where they're going to, depending on who the client is, they can burn you pretty quickly on this new EM385, or it can become your best friend with being prepared and planning accordingly to where there's not ever any hiccups. Obviously, in construction, there's always hiccups, but it's to limit that. And I think as we go through newer projects, it'll become as easy as the other APPs and the other AHAs. Is my thought.
Yeah. It's just a lot of extra steps, that's all.
It is that, for sure.
So
That AHA, I think the AHA form is non-mandatory.
it is.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. It's
But
non-mandatory.
try
but-
submitting one that isn't
gotta have
the
something.
right format.
You got to have something though, right?
Right. Right. So
Yeah, depending on the client, it gets weird quickly on the AHAs and everything else, because they'll tell you it's not. It doesn't have to be in a specific format, and then you'll turn around and they want everything in this specific format, and it could be based on which district of USACE you're working for.
right.
Unfortunately, they can kind of implement their own rules.
Yeah, you got to pick your battles, and that's one you don't want to fight over. That's the no-brainer. Just use the one that's in there.
Yeah, use the easiest thing for what they want and keep it moving. So yeah, that's all I've got. If anyone has any other questions, comments, concerns. Oh, I didn't share that in the chat. It's my bad, guys. I'm going to send the APP out in the chat.
Also, everybody, if you haven't had a chance to look at the chat, there is a link to the attendance quiz for this session. It's on ECC University. You should all be able to access it with that link. If you can't, please let me know. It'll also appear on your ECC University dashboard as part of the 2026 SSHO training.
Thanks, Sally.
Yeah, of course. And then once this session is finished and we've cut off the recording, I'll add that recording to the session as well.
Just kidding. It won't let me put it in the chat. Kim, do we have this in the safety and health EcoNet space already?
I have to check. I think it's on our team site. But thank you, because I've been sitting here trying to cut and paste into the chat too and attach.
Yeah,
and
I
it won't
can't
let
do
me.
it for some reason.
I don't know why it won't
I think
let
it's
me.
because we're live in the meeting. There's been something with the chat recently. If you're live, it won't let you attach a document while the meeting is
Okay.
in session. But once we're done, it should allow you to add a document.
Oh, cool. Okay, we'll do that. Thanks, Sally.
Yeah, of course. I just found that out last week.
Good to know. Well, thanks a lot, Garrett. That was awesome.
No problem. My pleasure.
Anyone else have any questions? Cool.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you guys for your time.
Yep. Have a good rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you, Garrett.
Okay, thank you, Mom.
Yep.
Thank you, Mom.